she saw the future. Ellen White's final lesson on faith and legacy. What nobody talks about. Look, tell me if you've ever stopped to think about this. You dedicated your entire life to a cause, to a mission you believe is from God. You traveled, you wrote, you fought, you saw your work grow from a seed into a gigantic tree. But then, the body tires. The pace slows. You find yourself at home, sitting by the window, watching the sun set, and the question arises, what now? What remains when the action stops? What happens to faith when all you can do is wait? This transition from frantic activity to silent reflection is the greatest test of faith for anyone, whether you are a church leader or just someone trying to fulfill your calling. It is the moment you discover if your faith was in your ability to do or in God who called you. My name is Nick, and I spend too much time thinking about how our faith is proven in fragility. It's not easy. It's not glamorous. That's where the true strength is revealed. If you are someone who is exhausted by your mission, if you feel like you are questioning whether your legacy truly matters, or if you are afraid of what the end of your faith journey will be like, go ahead and click the subscribe button and leave a like if this video helps you find peace in the quietness. Because today, on Together with Ellen White, we are going to dive into the final years of Ellen White. Not the fiery sermons, but the years of silence, reflection, and the physical fracture that stopped the body but never stopped the spirit. This is where she saw the future, and her final lesson is what we need to hear today. The question is this: why are a leader's final years so important? Look, Ellen White, at age 72, was no longer traveling the world. She was at Elmshaven. The air was fragrant. The pace was slow. Most leaders, when the body weakens, feel an identity crisis. They lose the pulpit, they lose the stage, they lose the power of action. Here is what most people don't realize. Ellen White's power in those years was no longer in her action, but in her intention, in her ability to review, refine, and consolidate. Think of it like a ship about to dock. The most important work is no longer speed, but the precision of the docking. It's like a marathon runner who, in the final miles, has to manage exhaustion. The strength no longer comes from the muscles, but from memory and will. She used the memory of God. Despite her age, her mind was an active volcano. She wasn't on vacation. She was writing. She was finalizing prophets and kings and the Acts of the Apostles. What does this teach us about faith? She wasn't writing about the future. She was writing about the past, the great history of God's people. Why? Because she wanted that, even after she was gone, people would have the complete contextualization. She didn't want the church to forget where it came from. The psychological shift here is profound. Instead of worrying about the next crisis, she worried about the permanence of the message. She transformed physical energy into written clarity. She was building a lighthouse, not just lighting a candle. And that is what makes her legacy time-proof. Now you might be thinking, okay Nick, but she was a prophet. It's easy to have faith when you have visions. And yes, it's a valid objection. But here is where it gets really interesting. Even at the height of her power, Ellen White emphasized humility and prayer. She had visions, but she also cried and worked. And in the final years, when her body failed, her humility was tested to the max. For a leader, the greatest fear is not death, it is oblivion. It's the fear that their work will stop. The ego whispers, you are irreplaceable. Faith whispers, God is irreplaceable, not you. She allowed herself to be physically diminished. This is the ultimate test of fire for true belief. In 1915, the unthinkable happens. While walking, she slips and fractures her hip. From that day on, the woman who traveled thousands of miles, who stood on countless pulpits, was confined to her bed. Think of the shock. Think of the pain. Think of the frustration. What would our reaction be? Anger? Questioning? Ellen White endured great discomfort, but she never stopped expressing gratitude. She received pastors and leaders not with complaints about her pain, but with words of God's faithfulness. Her greatest miracle of faith was not a vision that healed a sick person. It was the peace she radiated from a bed of pain. She proved that her strength did not come from her ability to move or speak to crowds, but from the unshakable connection with her Redeemer. Here is what most people don't realize about her legacy. It wasn't just the books. It was the institutions. Ellen White didn't just tell people to take care of their health. She built hospitals. She didn't just tell people to educate children. She started schools. In the final years, she saw her movement flourish to a global reach. She could have died in peace knowing the work was complete. But no. She continued to dictate letters from her bed. She was determined to ensure the work would continue beyond her own existence. We arrive at the morning of July 16, 1915. The room was silent. The family members gathered. Her breathing slowed. There were no dramatic cries. There was no public final vision. There was a gentle peace that filled the room. Her last whisper, "I know in whom I have believed." Think of the magnitude of that phrase coming from that woman. It's not a guess. It's not a vague hope. It is the unshakable certainty built on 87 years of obedience and faithfulness. This is the final and most important revelation. Her legacy was not in the quantity of pages she wrote or the quantity of miles she traveled. It was in her total confidence. Ellen White's final years teach us an eternal truth. True greatness, true faith, is not in power or fame, but in silent faithfulness, in living entirely for others and finally entirely for God. It is proof that the faith you lived will be the peace with which you die. So, what is the lesson you can apply to your life today? If you are tired, if your body is failing, or if you feel irrelevant because you are no longer on the front line, remember Elmshaven. Your mission doesn't stop when your pace stops. Your mission transforms. Turn your frustration into reflection, and your pain into gratitude. Your most important work may be the one you do in silence, sitting by the window, consolidating your faith. Your legacy is your unshakable trust in the one who called you. Are you feeling the weight of exhaustion today? I want to know. Leave a comment about your biggest challenge in faith. And if this analysis gave you a new perspective on the strength found in fragility, subscribe to Together with Ellen White and click the bell. Until next time, and may you find peace in your own Elmshaven.